Kieran Boyle, on the Arizona Cardinals, we talked when we were speaking about the Chargers prospects for the season ahead about how some teams just seem to have faults in their stars. The Chargers always look good, get to the playoffs, and then blow up spectacularly. The Cardinals are a team that starts the season like a train and then runs out of steam rapidly as you approach the final destination. Last year, lest we forget, at 6-4 heading into their bye week, they were on top of the NFC West. They were the division leaders. They went 2-5 the rest of the way, limped to 8-9, and it was over. That is not something that just happened in the Jonathan Gannon era. That was the big flaw with the Cliff Kingsbury era Arizona Cardinals as well. Seems for some reason the heat in the desert or whatever it is saps the Cardinals, and they enter like lions and leave like lambs every year. Is there any reason to hope that it might be different for them this year?
No. Short answer. No, I remember saying last season, I believe it was late October, that I didn't believe in Kyler Murray, despite the fact that he was putting up some decent numbers and they had a winning record. I knew it was going to come back to the median, and I knew it was going to turn around in a negative way for him. You're entering into year 7 with Kyler Murray now, and I've always had questions about not his ability as a quarterback, but his ability as a leader of men and of somebody who can rally players and somebody who can rally 340-pound O-linemen to put their body on the line for him. And I still don't see it. This is year 7. I don't think, and it's a huge contract that I think they're in that contract till 2028. So they're stuck with this guy for the next couple of years. And they probably know as well as I do that he's not the guy. It's A, you got a tough division, and B, you got a player who's owed a huge amount of money for the next couple of years. And I don't think they believe in him, his leadership ability, or his ability to win the big games. That's the Kyler Murray rant over. The rest of the squad, we had a nice season for McBride last year. We know about James Conner, but similar to a lot of other teams, where else is the talent going to come from? Marvin Harrison, will there be a sophomore slump? There was an over-reliance on him, and it's kind of like they put too much on his shoulders, and he dipped a little bit towards the end of the season. Phenomenal.
Did they put too much on his shoulders, or did they not direct enough volume his way? Because he's in a funny position, isn't he? That offense runs through Trey McBride, who's arguably the best tight end in the league on his day. It doesn't run through Harrison as you might expect it to do. Now, maybe that's because they didn't want to do that to him in his rookie season. It would be. I'm fascinated to see how they deploy him in the second season and whether they're going to push him into the limelight, because at times he looked sensational last year and at times he got lost.
Well, I would hope they will, because, you kind of equate him with a Brian Thomas Jr. or Malik Neighbors from the draft from last year. Both of those were targeted extensively and both turned into absolutely phenomenal weapons. Marvin Harrison has that, but he just wasn't. And there was a little bit of friction, remember, last year between the two. So, they're going to have to, if they're going to have any kind of a decent season, they're going to have to start using them much more than they did. And I'm not saying less reliance on McBride, but you've got an absolute stud in Harrison Jr. Why were they not using them as much as they were? That's another big question. My other question is on the defense. They did go heavy on some free agents. Calais Campbell. They did get Walter Nolan in the draft, Dalvin Tomlinson, Darius Robinson. So they have some weapons on. They picked up some nice guys in free agency for the defense. Secondary, I got questions other than Budda Baker. Who else is back there making plays? I got a lot of questions about Kyler Murray and his skills as a quarterback, B, in his leadership qualities and people's ability to rally behind him. And P, is the eye test telling you what you want to see from a quarterback? Does he have the dynamism that Josh Allen has, or that Drake May has, or Bo Nix? Does he have that gait that is a little bit? Am I really invested in all this? That's what gives it away sometimes. So I think that there's an issue with Kyler Murray's leadership abilities, and also with the offense that we talked about already. Veteran free agencies and defense, will that be enough to keep him competitive? Not sure. They finished 8-9 last year, which I think flattered them a little bit. But I think it's going to be a tough season for the Cardinals. I don't think everybody keeps waiting. Like I said, year 7 for Murray. Is he going to make the leap? I don't think it's going to be this year. So when is it going to be? And again, they've got a lot of money tied into this guy. I don't see a very successful season coming for the Cardinals.
Yeah, interesting. The bookies have them at around the over-unders around 8.5 wins, which would be same but different as far as the odds makers are concerned. Kieran O'Donovan, as Kieran Boyle was alluding to there, the big investments have been on the defensive side of the ball, both in free agency and in the draft, where the Cardinals are, by the looks of it, accepting, or depending on how rosy their glasses are, happy with what is on the offensive side of the ball between Kyler Murray, between the weapons they have, which we've talked about, and with Drew Petzing, who's, a highly regarded offensive coordinator who may, depending on how this season goes, be looking at head coaching interviews towards the end of the year. So they clearly feel that it's about complementing what the offense is doing. But overall, have they done enough?
Yeah, well, they were outside the top 20 in overall defense last year, so that would suggest. That was the side of the ball that they needed to address. There is a lot of talk about Walter Nolan in training camp, a lot of positive talk. I think I said a few weeks ago, or a couple of months ago on the show that I just couldn't get up for the Cardinals. There was nothing that there was nothing about them that really excited me. And again, I tend to agree with Kieran. I think it's centered around Kyler Murray, because they do have. We're talking about Marvin Harrison Jr. and again, reports out of camp there's a lot of focus on how he's built a lot of size and strength, and he looks like he could be in the mold of a DK Metcalf in terms of physicality, not necessarily temperament. But also Jordan Rodrigue wrote a highly complimentary piece last week about Trey McBride and the respect that she has for him, not just as a leader and a player, but as a man and a human being as well. And it's great to hear about people in the locker room like that who could really take a team and lead from the front. But you look to your quarterback, and he just, like Kyler Murray, for all the talent he possesses, he's got the throwing ability, he's got the ability to be accurate, and he's shown the ability to do that, and he's got that dynamism when he takes off and runs. But it's just all these stories about, you talked about him having friction with Marvin Harrison last year. You see these kind of petulant interviews. You see a lot of just too much of that stuff. And again, I think that's where the Cardinals fall down. It's that leader, the guy at the top of the pile. And whether they progress or whether they get into a position to advance to the playoffs, I think is more dependent on the health of the other rosters. We've talked about the 49ers, and we're going to talk about the Rams in a while, but I think they're going to look, it'll require a bit of luck on the Cardinals side for them to stay healthy, and for a few of those players to take a step, like Max Melton on corner, Trey Benson at running back to complement James Conner. Again, a few, too many ifs again for the Cardinals on this one.
Shane, I think it was you who mentioned earlier that if a team played in the AFC South or the AFC or the NFC South instead of the division that they were in, you might look at them differently. And you could probably apply that same logic to the Arizona Cardinals. If they were playing in the NFC South, you might have them as divisional contenders. It is kind of hard to get excited about them in this company. And, I haven't heard anyone casting the net a lot wider than the four of us here who's really invested in the Cardinals or thinks that if this happens or if that happens, they could get there. Most people seem to have them pretty much treading water.
Yeah, and last year I got not invested in the Cardinals, but I looked into them during that period. As you mentioned, they were the top of the division. I thought, okay, this is the point where they're going to start really showing their potential. But I think, much like Kyler, I think the team is reflecting the way Kyler Murray is, and that they're just a very frustrating group to watch, and that they could come out 1 week and play an absolutely fantastic game. We're sitting here doing our Sunday night review podcast and be like, holy SH1T, the Cardinals were awesome today. That's what they can do. And they just don't back it up. Well, what really...
If only we were actually that polite and restrained, Shane, which we're obviously not. I like what you're trying to do here, but those are not the kind of words we use here. It's not a family show, sadly.
No, I think I just heard my mother coming back in the house. I was like, I better be quiet now. But it's funny because obviously when we were previously talking about the AFC West, we were looking at how each of the four teams are led by these great head coaches who could define how we look at each squad, and that is the case with the four quarterbacks in this division. When I was writing down my notes for what we can expect from the Cardinals, it's Kyler Murray. And the problem is he's just not consistent enough. Like last year, that came into a crucial point of the season where they played the Seahawks twice in 3 weeks. Win one of those games, you make the playoffs, and they bottled the two of them. I didn't have a great end to the season when they were in a very commanding position at 6-4 when at a point when I think the other twos, when I think the Rams and the Seahawks are 5-5 going to the tail end of the year. And I think the Cardinals are starting to catch on to that. Look at where they've put their capital in this year, bringing in Josh Sweat. The first 5 guys they've taken in the draft are all the defensive side of the ball. I think they're investing in that side to try and at least sort of keep the points down so that if Kyler Murray does have a shaky game, which he will do, and the offense doesn't deliver in a way that they can do when it comes to James Conner or Trey McBride, for example, that they have a defense that might be able to find ways to win games, because the offense isn't going to always be able to win games in the way that they really should be able to, because of the talent that's there. But talent means nothing if you can't do it for a whole game. It doesn't mean anything if you can't do it for 2-3 games in a row in this league. You can't win games playing one good half of football. I think that was the problem with the Cardinals a lot, and I don't see any reason why that's really changed. So in the company they're in, I think they're going to find this season more difficult than the talent in their squad merits.